Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for another edition, Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, we've got another sunny weekend coming up for Anchorage once again, as high pressure controls virtually southern Alaska and to, well, a lesser extent, the Panhandle. But for Anchorage, looking for highs on Saturday into the around the mid-70s, possibly lower to mid-70s, and then on Sunday more in the lower 70s, and really not much of a change. Then maybe dropping below 70 on Monday with a few more clouds. Anyway, no rain inside, at least for the next 3 to 5 days, or 3 days, the way it looks right now at this point in time. Moving on to the hazardous weather graphic. Nothing is, there are no watches, warnings, or advisories in effect, but there is the potential for continued flooding here in this area due to the Berg GDL releasing, and the Gandil and Bering rivers are the ones affected, and that's probably going to continue at least through tomorrow, through Saturday, maybe longer. Fire danger, some areas here of just getting onto the scale of the high category there. Northeast Bristol Bay here, possibly King Salmon northward to west of Iliamna Lake. A little farther down the peninsula, say possibly toward Pilot Point. It looks like right in that area there. And then the Kenai Peninsula around Kenai, Soldotna, and eastward toward Broadview with, actually Broadview today had a mid-afternoon temperature of 83 degrees, and other areas over the Kenai Peninsula are pushing 80 degrees. Susitna Valley, same sort of pattern, so a little bit of high to very high fire danger there, with Big Lake seeing 82 degrees this afternoon, and the Thunderbird Falls station at 83, and 80 up at Talkeetna. Copper River Basin, still high fire danger there. Again, in that narrow area on the valleys there. Temperature this afternoon 75 to 80, so continued dry conditions across southern Alaska and even the northern Panhandle there. Some areas from about Juneau on up toward Haines and Skagway in the high to very high, or even maybe isolated extreme fire danger over the northern southeast coast. And for satellite imagery, you can see disturbance here moving southeastward, and that brought a fair amount of rain here to the eastern interior areas. Delta Junction had 4/10 of an inch of rain, as did Eagle, 4/10 of an inch falling there, and about 1/4 of an inch at Chickens. And then amounts lightened up here as you went back to the west and northwest. A much weaker system here on the Arctic coast, and some other clouds passing by mostly to the east. Otherwise, you could see the dry conditions with mostly sunny skies. Southern Alaska here, Kodiak Island, sunshine today, 73 degrees this afternoon, mid-afternoon, not the highs. And sunshine over the central northern southeast coast here, more in the way of clouds down across the southern Panhandle. The temperature is still pushed into the, or approach 70 in some areas down south there. Stewart, 75 degrees, and otherwise clouds. Other locations are in the upper 60s. Not much in the way of precipitation, although showers expected to develop tonight in that area. Out over the Bering Sea, we've got a not so impressive front pushing some moisture and a little bit of a breeze into the far western Aleutians there. Clouds, fog, drizzle at times, central or Adak to Atka, and batch of moisture here just south of the Pueblos. Probably will bring some precipitation light of the light variety in this evening if it hasn't already started. And clouds on Alaska, clouds and fog all the way up to the Bering Strait. And fog earlier today gave way to just a cloudy skies here over the eastern Arctic coastal areas. Umiat did pick up 0.03 of an inch of precipitation with this feature. That was about it. Anywhere that did only had a few hundredths of an inch. On the chart today, Rain and showers here with this system, kind of a washing out front. Mostly a disturbance that's easiest seen in the upper air, and that's kicking that precipitation off. South of the mountains, though, downsloping conditions with high pressure to the west. West of the high pressure, there's that front out over the western Aleutians, and pretty good low center developing farther to the west there. But for tonight, dry southern Alaska, dry up over the central and western interior. Lingering showers probably through most of the night, although they'll be diminishing here, probably ending. But from about the White Mountains on up toward the Eastern Brooks Range, they'll tend to linger all the way to morning. Also over the southern southeast coast, look for an increasing chance of some shower activity there with continued clear skies up to the north, mostly clear North Gulf Coast, Kodiak, Alaska, Kodiak again, and into south central Alaska. Out west, that front pushes rain into Adak, and then tomorrow that makes better jog off to the east there, but the rain shield narrows, and so it'll break out in Adak tomorrow afternoon. The main low center keeps it unsettled and breezy out over the western Aleutians, and a chance of rain approaches the Pribilofs. Could be a partly sunny day for Alaska, Dutch Harbor, and Nikolsky. It will be a partly sunny day here over the southwest interior, and a sunny day from south central Alaska across the Copper River Basin, and look for a lot of sunshine right up to the Brooks Range. And in this area of moisture, just slipping on down to the Arctic coast, maybe makes landfall as early as tomorrow afternoon or as late as tomorrow evening, as this weak system, remnants of that front, the aforementioned front from today, still kicks off a few showers over the upper Tanana Valley 40-mile country, and mostly cloudy with a few showers around for the southern southeast coast, and that kind of lingers into Sunday as well. Otherwise, sunny conditions, 70s. Northern Panhandle, 70s again for Yakutat. You had at least 73 today. Probably will again tomorrow and Sunday. Now we have a frontal boundary through the central interior on Sunday with a chance of precipitation along that. Nothing too terribly heavy, especially pretty weak in the central area here. South of the frontal boundary will be mostly sunny or variably sunny, depending. The farther south you go, the less clouds you'll see. Kodiak, another sunny day. Same thing for the Panhandle. Looks pretty wet for the Yukon Delta, maybe the Kuskokwim Delta here from the Pribilofs on down to the central Aleutians. That pushing up with rain, low clouds, fog right up to the Bering Strait and the Seward Peninsula, back into the sun from the North Slope and Brooks Range. And for low temperatures tonight, mid-30s to mid-40s north of the Brooks Range, and in the 40s and mostly 50s to mid-50s over Bristol Bay, upper 40s, 45 to 50 for the Copper River Basin, and 50s for the Panhandle. Highs tomorrow, mid-60s with clouds and those showers, scattered showers over the southern southeast coast, mid to upper 70s to the north. A day just like today for south central Alaska, again 75 to 85 for the highs, and 75 to 80 Copper River Basin, near 70 give or take here in the central interior, and lower 40s in the Arctic coast. Lows the following morning range from lower to mid 50s here over the southwest to upper 30s along the Arctic coast. And then high temperatures for Sunday, maybe down a little bit, not too bad, you won't really notice. Still sunny with highs in the mid 70s southern Alaska, and near 70 in the interior.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving on to our first flying weather graphic for Saturday morning. IFR, Bering Sea Aleutians, all the way to the north side, or along the north side of the Alaska Peninsula here. VFR south side into Kodiak Island, Bristol Bay, but the IFR right into the Yukon Delta eastward, with marginal VFR at least up to the Kuskokwim Mountains, and then IFR back up across Norton Sound, western Seward Peninsula, and over to about Shishmaref or so. And then VFR here in the North Slope, western Arctic coast, and some of the east side as well, some marginal stuff, central eastern Brooks Range, VFR all the way down to the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, except for some marginal VFR possible here over the eastern Alaska Range, Copper River Basin area. IFR right along the coast of Prince of Wales Island. And for the afternoon, marginal VFR along the coast of Prince of Wales Island up to past Sitka, up the coast from Sitka, and otherwise VFR, another good day for the southeast coast. Beautiful here for the North Gulf Coast, from the Gulf of Alaska, Kodiak Island, Bristol Bay, all the way northward there to the Arctic coast. Central coast a little iffy with the lower flying conditions. And then IFR from the Bering Strait, pretty much the same as the morning, maybe a little bit less here. Well, eastern Aleutians become marginal VFR, and also the north side of the peninsula becomes marginal and stays VFR on the south side. For Sunday morning, again, not much change here. You've got IFR, north side of the Alaska Peninsula, back into the IFR for the eastern Aleutians, Pribilofs, Bering Sea, same story, right up to the Seward Peninsula and Norton Sound, eastward to the Nulato Hills. VFR again here, central eastern interior, all the way back up across the Brooks Range and out to the northwest coast here from possibly Kotzebue, and more likely though Kivalina, and then lower stuff here along the Arctic coast. North slope, not too bad. As we'll see in the afternoon, it actually kind of pulls back to the coast, much like Saturday afternoon. Same pattern here for the Sunday afternoon forecast. VFR, central eastern interior, and again VFR all the way out to the northwest coast, north side of the Seward Peninsula, VFR for Bristol Bay. And not much change, still have this lower condition here hanging off the central and south coast of the Panhandle. And for Anaktuvik, both Anaktuvik and Atigun starting out marginal, possibly marginal, and then becoming VFR later in the morning and through the afternoon. Moving on to Lake Clark and Merrill, looks like mostly VFR day, or will be a VFR day tomorrow for both Lake Clark and Merrill. A little bit more moisture up toward Rainy, so start that one out as marginal, then becoming VFR again during the morning hours. And for Windy, marginal VFR becoming VFR, and same forecast for Isabel, starting out possibly marginal, becoming VFR. And for Mentasta, VFR the entire day, as well as Tanita, good VFR flying from morning to evening. Portage, VFR. Chilcoot White, VFR. Freezing levels, 4,000 feet there near Kaktovik, all the way up to 12,000 feet here, Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, and eastward along the Aleutians. Icing batch here coming in with the considerable moderate with that frontal boundary, staying west of the Pribilofs, but dragging across central Aleutians. This batch kind of slipping on eastward slowly. This area up here, that's going to be descending down across the eastern Arctic coast early on Saturday evening, and this is exiting the eastern interior. For the jet stream, high pressure here over the eastern Bering, ridging up into the Chukchi, upper level low off the eastern Arctic coast. We got northwesterly sailing down around that feature. Also northwest winds coming around the high at about 60 knots, a little stronger out west there due to the storminess. Actually a pretty potent storm, a gale force storm there over the right near the Komodorsky Islands. And for 9,000 feet, we've got westerly flow kind of brisk up on the central and eastern Arctic coast, 25 to 30 knots, 10 to 20 here over the eastern interior, and about 5 to 10 North Gulf Coast into the Gulf, 5 to 15 for the Panhandle, and then stronger winds with that system out west, 30 to 40 knots. 9,000 feet, about the same thing here, south-southwest, 25 to 45 knots with that. And then diminishing, of course, as you get under the ridge, you go through it, and those brisk winds along the central eastern Arctic coast, and 5 to 10 knot winds for the Panhandle. Turbulence-wise, looks like the central Aleutians about it. Occasional light to isolated moderate chop from Amchitka Island eastward to Atka. And after the marine forecast, I'll be
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and joining me once again is Eric Stevens from the Geographic Information Network of Alaska, or GINA, based at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Eric, welcome back to the show.
Well, Dave, it's great to be back. Thanks for inviting us again.
Sure thing. And today we want to talk about identifying burn scars. That would be the burned up area after a wildfire when the flames and the smoke are gone. We can see it if you drive by it on the roadway, of course, but from satellite, we can also identify those places on the land, right?
You know it. You know that expression, ouch, that's going to leave a mark?
Yeah.
After you bang your knee getting out of the car.
Oh yeah.
Well, the ouch, it's going to leave a mark, that also applies to the landscape. Whenever a wildfire ravages through, it's going to leave a mark on the landscape. After a wildfire burns out, this is called a burn scar.
Okay.
And you can ask yourself, well, that's interesting. We can see a burn scar from space. Right. Then the question is, well, why does that matter?
Okay.
Who cares?
Yeah, fire's over.
Right, the fire is over. We don't need to worry about this anymore. It turns out you kind of do, because burn scars are important. There's this old rule of thumb in the weather business that flood follows fire. The action of the fire in killing off the vegetation, in baking, kiln drying the landscape a little bit, can hinder the land's ability to absorb rainfall. So if you have a fire, especially if it's in complex mountainous terrain. This is classic in California. It can happen somewhat in Alaska too. You get a wildfire in steep, hilly, or mountainous terrain, rips off all the vegetation off the landscape. Then 6 months later, there's a big rainstorm, and you get a flash flood in that area. So flood can follow fire. That's why you got to know where the burn scars are. Secondly, a fire needs fuel to maintain itself. So if there's an old burn scar left over from a year or two ago, and then another summer later here in Alaska in the interior, it's a big wildfire season. If there's a fire advancing toward an old burn scar, well, guess what? That old burn scar is going to be tougher terrain for that new fire to get through, because there's not as much fuel in that burn scar. So they almost act like a natural fire break. These are a couple of reasons why you need to know where those burn scars are. Alaska Fire Service has limited resources. They want to put their people and their equipment where it does the most good. They need to know, well, this is an area where there's no burn scar. We better put people here because that fire could really run.
So really important for weather forecasters and fire weather forecasters for sure.
Oh yeah.
But then how do weather satellites actually detect those burn scars?
Ah, good question.
Thanks.
Well, let's turn the Wayback Machine to the summer of 2015. That was a very active year. We've got a picture here taken up in the White Mountains. This is one of the fires in progress that summer, and if you look real close, you can almost see Frodo throwing the ring into the volcano there. So that's quite the vision. Well, let's look at a visible image. Here we are in Alaska's interior. This is before the fires got out of the cage in early summer of 2015. Let's zoom into the western interior here. Again, this is a weather satellite image of visible light, what the human eye can see. We're into the middle reach of the Yukon Valley there in the western interior, Galena area. And this is just a beautiful visible day. Nothing much going on. It's in early June before the fires really got active. But then in 2015, the fires got loose, especially in that western interior. Here's another image. The same satellite pass as that visible image, but now we're not quite looking at visible light.
Very different.
There's a slight change here. This image incorporates something called the veggie band. 0.86 micron wavelength. The micron's very tiny, but that wavelength responds to vegetation, the chlorophyll. So trees and grasses reflect that part of the electromagnetic spectrum back to the satellite. And so the satellite sees that. When signal comes at that wavelength to the satellite, we know, there's some vegetation growing there. This is great. You can identify coastlines so easily because you go from vegetation to water. Turns out if you have a burn scar, guess what? You burned away the vegetation, so that's going to show up. We're going to do a before, during, and after kind of look here. And so we're looking at before. So in this image, we got a lot of green out there. That's wonderful. Another fun thing about this kind of imagery is you can see down in the Alaska Range in the southeast corner of the image, it's blue. That's glaciers and snow in the mountains. So this is not really what the human eye can see. This is these wavelengths are beyond human vision, but we've made them look certain colors. So the vegetation looks green. Now let's look at that same kind of satellite recipe, but during the fires. This is in July. The fires are loose. You can see the smoke in the middle of the image, the smearing look of the smoke, and then we can see some clouds that are white. Icy clouds are blue. So this is in July of 2015. The fires are doing their thing. We're burning up millions of acres. Now let's go to September. The fires are out. The audience has left the theater. You know, the event's over, right? We're done. But guess what? Now look at those brown patches.
Look at that.
All of those places are where the fire has burned away the vegetation. So you can see where the fires were. You can add up these perimeters, get acreage burned and such. And so that's good to know. Now remember, flood follows fire, and these are also natural fire breaks. So you need to know where these guys are. In the course of the 2015 summer season, we went from before with not much burn scar in this area to just a couple months later, we can see so much burn scarring on the landscape. What's interesting too about the satellite and looking at burn scars is you realize that burn scars are the gift that keeps on giving. You can forget that a couple of years ago maybe there was a fire in a certain area, but the satellite won't forget. So in the summertime we get wildfires in Alaska, but guess what? In the visible imagery here we can see the burn scars just a little bit. but they're not as prominent as in that veggie band. But then you can't see them at all if you cover them up with snow, right?
Exactly.
So here's an image from the middle of the winter time.
Wow.
And snow on the ground by this recipe looks blue. Again, these are wavelengths of light that the human eye can't really see. We're getting up into the infrared, near infrared. And the way we've assigned colors is if there's snow on the ground or there's a glacier, it looks blue, kind of intuitive. So this is early April of the following year, 2016.
Okay.
We're just about to get into breakup. We've got a lot of snow on the ground, and now it's all going to melt. And as the snow melts, then you get our final image here. Doesn't this look familiar? This looks like a lot of what we saw in September of the previous summer. So this is the spring of the next year. The fires themselves might not have overwintered, they're gone, but the fire scar does. And as the snow melts away, and then you have breakup, and then you have green up, whenever the leaves come out, the grass comes back, except in the burned areas, they're having a tough time because everything got burned off the previous year. So you can see these scars even the next summer, multiple years. It depends on what kind of vegetation there is. You know, some of the tussocky tundra grasses, they'll grow back really quick, but to get a forest to come back, that'll take much longer. So these burn scars, eventually the landscape will fill in the burn scar. It will heal itself, if you want to use that metaphor. But for the next few years, you can still keep track of these on satellite. And again, the reason we want to do that is that the burn scar can facilitate a flood, and it can act like a fire break. So there you are, the veggie band.
Tools. So if you're a weather satellite and you're looking at my bowl of vegetables here, you might be able to pick out which one's the pea, which one's the tomato, and which one's the carrot, and apply that information precisely to whatever it is you're working on there. That is really fascinating stuff, that we have that capability from so high above the planet Earth, and Alaska for that matter.
Yep, eat your veggies.
Yes, definitely. I think I will. I'm hungry. Thanks so much for joining us again, Eric, and thank you for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. We'll see you right here next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis continuing to slowly retreat. You can see there the east-southeast shore of Wrangel Island now ice-free, and looks like late in the weekend, early next week, we might get northerly winds out here, and so we could see this the outer edge here, or the independent ice fields, shifting southward a little bit again late this weekend and into the first of next week, but still quite a ways off the coast, so really no concern. And for the coastal waters, a no-wind day for the southeast coast, especially on the outer coastline here. Northwest 5 knots, seas 2 to 4 feet. Variable 10, central southern inside waters with 2-foot seas. North 15, a breeze there for Lynn Canal, and seas at 3 feet. Outlook for Sunday, south 15 for Lynn Canal, otherwise southeast at 10 here for Stevens Passage and Clarence Strait. 5 to 10 knot westerlies on the south coast, seas holding at 3 feet, and west 10 for the north coast with 3-foot seas. And Prince William Sound, north winds 10 knots, seas 2 feet. Same forecast for the eastern North Gulf Coast. Western North Gulf Coast, northeast at 10 with 2-foot seas. West 15 there for the Barren Islands, and northwest 20 for Kamishak Bay. Cook Inlet, north winds at 10 knots, becoming variable in the afternoon, seas 2 to 3 feet. And the outlook for Sunday, southwest at 10 for Cook Inlet, 2-foot seas. That extends right on down across Kamishak Bay. Barren Islands, western North Gulf Coast, southwest 15, 2 to 3-foot seas. Prince William Sound, southwest at 10 with seas at 2 feet, and southwest 10 with 3-foot seas for the eastern North Gulf Coast. Kodiak Island, north to northwest, only 10 knots tomorrow, seas 2 to 3 feet. Sitkinak to Castle Cape, northwest 15 and 4-foot seas. And south side, Alaska Peninsula, northwest at 10, seas 3 feet. North side, east at 10 with 2-foot seas, and north 15 with 3-foot seas for Bristol Bay. And for Sunday, south 20 knots here for the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula. Pacific side from Cape Sarichef to Castle Cape, west at 15, and just 10 knot winds there on up to Sitkinak. Southwest 15, east side of Kodiak Island, light westerlies at 10 for Bristol Bay and Shelikof Strait. And for the eastern Aleutians tomorrow, southwest 10 to 15, especially on Alaska Island. Nikolsky west Small craft advisories south to southeast 25. And in the case of the area north side of the islands of Adak and Atka, minimum gales 35 knots tomorrow. And then small craft advisories all the way west to Shimia from the south with 9-foot seas. And those 25-knot winds hold out over the far western Aleutians on Sunday, but drop down to 15 knots here until you get toward Adak and Atka. Small craft advisories south 25 to 30. And for the Fox Islands, south winds south to southwest 20 to 30 knots. And for the southwest coast, south of Nunivak Island, northwest of 15. And north side there, south 15 up across St. Lawrence Island, southeast 20 for the Pribilofs, and south 30 for St. Matthew Island. For Sunday, Norton Sound south at 10, east 15 St. Lawrence Island, south to southeast 20 knots for the southwest coast. Same thing for St. Matthew Island. Small craft advisory, south winds at 25 with 8-foot seas for the Pribilofs. And for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, west at 15, seas 3 feet, northwest 10 on the central coast, turning northeast 15 here on the west side all the way down to Cape Thompson, then just 10 knots, same direction to Wales. Outlook for Sunday, Wales up to Cape Thompson, northeast 15, seas 4 feet, and from Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort, northeast at 20 with 4-foot seas. That'll be the windiest place up there on Sunday for these zones, with lighter winds out of the north on the west side, west 15 central coast, and the east side there, northwest 10 to 15 knots with seas 2 to 3 feet. For tonight, again, diminishing showers here, but kind of lingering from the White Mountains, but really getting isolated toward morning, even the Brooks Range. Otherwise, fair over the interior. Front trying to push rain into the central Aleutians. Showers develop over the southern southeast coast, nothing heavy, just scattered nature or isolated. And that looks like a cloudy day with a few showers around for the southern panhandle. Sunshine up north, North Gulf Coast, south central Alaska. Day much like today, southern Alaska, Copper River Basin, central interior. Less precipitation over the east side, and just a weak trough and a threat here for the Seward Peninsula, and precipitation drops down to the Arctic coast late tomorrow afternoon and evening. Sunday, wet in the west, dry and sunny in the north, as well as the south, with a narrow band of precip in between.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.